The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you in on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Could be a big weekend for the Big Red. More on a couple of the visitors that are set to be in Lincoln for that Big Red barbecue. And Mr. Dillon doing the peer recruiting thing. So we'll spend some time on that. More thoughts as we gear up for camp. We'll have a chance to hear from more Nebraska football folks on Tuesday of this week, but Wednesday looms as your thirst will be quenched and football 2024 will officially be underway. Brian Christopherson with us from Husker 24/7 Sports in about 15 minutes. I have missed him, the pride of Fairbury, and the Professor Bill Doleman in hour two. Clausborne, he's imaginary and wears red. He'll be along in hour two with some commentary on the week that was. Numbers to dial up, 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can find us on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Watch the show, stream it that way. As always, subscribe and like Hail Varsity YouTube. Hear us along the Hail Varsity Radio Network and can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. So, on average, Elijah, you're a guy that tends to snack here and there on sunflower seeds. And
I've been known to.
Sunflower seeds have gone nuclear in a good way, where there's about any and every flavor under the sun you can get. Junior was always partial to the barbecue or kind of the cracked black pepper flavor. But Papa Al turned him on to the dill pickle flavor. And that's what I would snack on when he was unretired from baseball. You've been inhaling. It's a giant lime green bag of sunflower seeds.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can put them on stream because they're not like a sponsor.
They're
or
not.
anything.
Not yet, Elijah Herbel. But you are just, I walk into the studio, you've got your spittoon. It's a different looking spittoon than we usually see in this studio. And you're all about the dill pickle flavor.
Yeah, it's a spicy dill pickle.
Ah.
Which it gives it a little...
The old spicy pickle.
There's jokes to be made there, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the high road.
It's a spicy pickle.
That spicy dill pickle is what we're rocking with today. You don't know where to go from here now. I will say there's been some flavors that have really struck. I usually have like one flavor per summer. That's like my flavor that summer. In summers past, there's been the Tapatio lime. Fantastic. Not sure if you've seen those around. Those were great. I was inhaling those in the baseball diamond a couple summers back, just like it was my part-time job, which the umpiring was, the consuming seeds was not. Then there was the Taco Supreme. I'm not sure if you ever tried those because you go, oh, those have got to be nasty, right? The Taco Supreme ones actually taste like a legitimate like Taco Bell taco.
So
fantastic.
From an addictive standpoint, we're all addicted to Nebraska football.
Nice
right?
transition.
But from a seed flavor standpoint, the addictability ranking is what? The spicy pickle
dill
one
pickle?
Over the taco?
The spicy dill pickle's up there because I'm already addicted to dill pickle. Like, if there's one flavor of seeds I'm going to keep on going back to, it's going to be the dill pickle. Dill pickle's tried and true. I never get tired of it. So the spicy dill pickle adds a nice little twist onto it. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I could go through multiple years of bags of the spicy dill pickle, but as of right now, I'm highly enjoying these. I'm finding them quite addictive, where it was just I could not keep throw another handful of seeds in my mouth whenever I finish the last.
I bring up the sunflower seeds and the tastes and how you get down to lead us into Paul Finebaum, because he is an acquired taste. Respect Paul, and the guy has made a monster career from kind of semi-regional national columnist to Sports Illustrated to his own empire in the Southeast, all the way to ESPN and being like the talking head of college football. And he's also, because ESPN's in bed with the SEC, they're partners, they're business partners, totally get it. He's the attack dog for the SEC. And the SEC has gone in on, or I should say Paul Finebaum's gone in on, a handful of programs, right? Lane Kiffin, we played that for you about a week ago, where Lane just pretty much undressed Paul Finebaum. Then you go to Lincoln Riley just getting flogged a little bit by Paul Finebaum.
Well, he's been on the path of everyone who has not been an SEC coach.
Right. It's like he's got to continue to put out the propaganda of how great and mighty the SEC is. Dude, we get it. We get that you have Alabama, and maybe it's truly a transition with Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban. I think Bama's fine. I think I think their pantry is still pretty stocked, and you've got a good coach. You don't have an idiot coaching you. LSU, Oklahoma, Texas. Where else am I want to go? Tennessee, Georgia, for God's sake. Kentucky's good. You're fine. But with the addition of these 4 teams to the Big Ten, with what Ohio State is, with Michigan beating Bama in Pasadena, and Michigan trouncing Washington in the national title game, different team, but Michigan climbed the mountaintop. Ohio State's already been in that rarefied air the last 5 seasons. Penn State could have a bounce back. Oregon is good, and it's got SEC feels and flavor. It isn't just the SEC and then maybe 1 or 2 Big Ten. You've got a deep pool on top of the top heavy in the Big Ten. He knows it. Absolutely knows it, and he's got to continue to fight the good fight for SEC supremacy. So I'm not mad at Finebaum. We're talking about him. His job is to get clicks and response and viewers, and there's different platforms across ESPN that you may or may not tune into, but he'll appear on right now just to pull the pin and throw a grenade. That happened this morning. Or maybe yesterday, whenever it was. It's still a blur. It's Friday, right?
Takes me back to that poem after World War II. It's like whenever he came after Lincoln Riley, I stood by because I thought it was funny. I'm not a Lincoln Riley fan.
We're not all Lincoln Riley guys. I mean,
whenever he went after Prime, I sat on the side and I laughed because
it wasn't Nebraska.
It wasn't Nebraska.
It was Prime.
But then he comes after Nebraska, and you say, okay, this clown. And that's what it feels like today. You go, this SEC clown is trying to talk down on the only other conference that is positioned to threaten the SEC over the next decade or so. That's what it is right now. The problem being is that the ESPN and the people like Finebaum do control the narrative in college football. And you have some other more independent voices, people like Klatt, people like Josh Pate, that have come to the forefront and I think are doing a good job giving equal coverage. But at the end of the day, ESPN still controls the narrative of college football throughout most of the season.
Well, and they're going to keep pushing that button because it isn't the NCAA who's going to get the playoff picks.
Mm-hmm.
And SEC and ESPN are going to do their damnedest to make sure their investments are there a whole plenty in that 12 team. It's almost like, well, how dare you suggest, Matt Rhule, how dare you suggest that there's 4 Big Ten teams worthy of taking 2 spots from the SEC? That's what it felt like. Let's play it for you. This was on Get Up with Greenberg. This was Finebaum going all in on Matt Rhule. And listen, Matt Rhule was talking about the league. Matt Rhule's not talking about Nebraska in the playoff context. He wants to be there someday, absolutely. He's striving for it. He's recruiting for it. He's developing for it. Nebraska's got to go win football games. They had to get to a bowl game. We all know that. And it's not a cart before the horse moment from Matt Rhule. Matt was asked about the Big Ten, and Matt laid out what he's seen from the Big Ten and what he knows is coming in. Here is the arrows at one Matt Rhule from Paul.
We'll hear the quote from Rhule first, and then Paul will.
Let's get you the full picture.
I think 4 teams from this league should get in every year because this is the best league. This is the NFL of college football in my mind. It stretches from coast to coast, different time zones, different weather. That's not to diminish any other league. The SEC is amazing. These other leagues are great, but the challenge in the Big Ten is going to be really difficult.
So he says the Big Ten should just automatically get 4 teams in the playoff. Paul, what do you think of that?
Matt, stay in your lane, okay? Job 1, win enough games to get to some stupid bowl game. Don't worry about the big boys because you're not one of them. We saw what you did in the NFL. You were a complete disaster in Carolina. You somehow got this job in Nebraska, and you're talking like you belong at the table with Ohio State and Georgia. You don't. Just try to win maybe 6 games. Quit choking big games on the final play and leave the punditry to the professionals. Thank you.
Professionals, yeah.
Yeah. Guys that haven't coached, of course, or recruited, or
played it down to football,
or gone to a conference title game, or resurrected 2 tough programs. Why not go in? The only vulnerability you can pick at right now with Matt Rhule's tenure and career is his NFL experience. And guess what? Better owner, better quarterback situation, better organization. He's still in the NFL. He's not a bad football coach. He's a good football coach. And he's also a good enough football coach to realize that, man, I really love college. I love being able to connect with kids. So how about let's look at the full picture here, Paul, and what's he done in college? He's kicked ass in college.
For some reason, I don't remember Paul Finebaum ever shooting any arrows towards Nick Saban for his failures in the NFL. Maybe I'm misremembering there, but it's convenient picking and choosing that for a Big Ten coach like Matt Rhule. He's picking and choosing, well, he failed in the NFL, but then for his favorite coach ever, Nick Saban, no mention ever is made of the NFL failures of one Nick Saban. It's funny.
You pick and choose to craft your narrative. And listen, 4 teams, I think we all believe that. This league of 18, you should get 4 in every year. Down year, bad year, 3. Normal year, 4. Maybe it's really, really good and really, really deep where there's an 8-4 team that sneaks in because they knocked off the top team. That can happen. That will happen in the SEC, and that will happen in the Big Ten. So just pump your brakes there, Paul, and realize that you have competition. Realize that your king, Bama, may not be what it once was because that's listen, Bama's not won a title in 5 years. Okay? They've been to the playoff. And right now the reality is the Big Ten is your defending college football champion with Michigan. We'll see what that transition's like, but you have a handful of squads, specifically Ohio State and Oregon, that are every inch as powerful financially as some of your top dogs in the SEC. And you've got one of your own in Lanning ready to come over and try and dominate the Big Ten. So buckle up. It's going to be fun. For the grand scope of college football, this will be outstanding to have 2 monster leagues, and we can sprinkle in some Big 12 or ACC or Notre Dame as well. But we're going to get a full look of 12 teams here, not to fast forward through the season, but we're going to get a full look, man, of just the strongest team truly surviving a playoff gauntlet. And Rhule's not wrong with the NFL comparison. Everything's 24-21, it feels like, in the Big Ten. It's defense, it's bad weather, it's travel, and it is every week you are tested and every week you are beat up. And I think that's the case a lot of the time in the SEC. There's not a lot of off weeks. Like, as bad as Arkansas may be, saying 4-8, 5-7, they've still got some dudes, right? You may go survive. You can't take a week off. There is Vanderbilt, but the Big Ten doesn't have a Vanderbilt. But the Big Ten is also putting themselves out there with keeping their non-conference slate, and they're also putting themselves out there with having 9 conference games. They're not scheduling Samford between when they get done playing Tennessee and then they're hooking up for the Iron Bowl. There's no off week, week 3 in the Big Ten with a regional Division II that is routinely scheduled. And the SEC isn't going to cut their own throat. They're going to keep it as is because they can.
And can I say something really fast as we wrap up this conversation? We do have to get to the news of the weekend, the starting 5. I know David Sanders and Dylan Riola currently seemingly taking a tour of the Capitol here in town. Which is fun. They took a picture from a top with the background being downtown. But I will say one thing.
You're going to go to the top. David, you come here. This could all be yours.
Maybe they're going and shaking hands with the governor, for all we know.
Okay.
I know there's a special session that's going on right now, so I know the governor's in town.
He would gladly break away from that.
He had to go shake hands with a 5-star. Yeah, he would. But I will say one last thing here on Finebaum. This might not be popular to say right now. I will give Finebaum credit. Finebaum is quite smart when he talks about the things that he knows. And what he knows is the SEC. Mm-hmm. Just encourage him to stay in his lane.
Stay in his lane, yeah.
And shut the hell up talking about things you don't know. And what he does not know is anything in college football that is not the SEC.
Sure. Stay in your own lane, bro. Arlo is in, starting 5. Patrick is second. NU Grandpa third. Black Hills, Brennan. Hello. Mr. Snitley. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. And Jeff asks if anyone's going to go welcome David Sanders to Lincoln. I assume there'll be a few thousand down there around 5:15. Anonymous checks in. Rhule told Dylan to throw something at Carter Nelson that he couldn't catch. Dylan responded that he'd have to throw him out of the stadium. Good speed there. Good work, Anonymous. Sal is in. The other Dave says F. Paul Finebaum. Chopper 76. Mark is in. The real Matthew. Jimmy is here. And the other Brian with a travel story. Brian Christopherson coming up at Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity on a Friday, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. The other Brian makes it known that his travel woes were worse than many, which is saying something. It took him 5 days to get back on a 4-day trip. The other Brian, I am sorry about that. Nick is in. Brent is in. Tiger Shark Diver is in. Plenty of you in the Stream Hail Varsity YouTube crew says what's up. And Coach Brandon is also in. The other Brian. We'll get to more of you here in the stream. Montana Husker fan going in on Paul Finebaum as well. Like it. Mr. Snitley has a hashtag that we can't really repeat on air, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty funny.
It's really good. Brian Christopherson back from Indy. Awesome work with Husker 24/7 Sports. Find and follow BC on Twitter. And do so, Husker 24/7 BC. Brian, how was Indy? Thanks for a few minutes, bud.
Oh, no problem. Indy was fine. Bruns and I, we drove it, so we avoided plane troubles. Long drive, but I'm not complaining. We're covering football, for goodness sake. That's, you're never going to hear me be a curmudgeon about driving to talk about football. So no, it was good.
And next time I will find a way to drive as well. We're just going to leave it at that.
Well, I'm not sure we want you driving. Last time you were driving, you broke your ankle.
Well, right, but this will be a vehicle, not a golf cart. So moving forward.
Well, now it's technicality. Is a golf cart not a vehicle?
No, it is, but I'm not going to be dangling my leg out the car on the interstate. So, BC, a lot to get into. Let's start on the recruiting front and this weekend. We'll circle back to just some impressions from you with Nebraska in Indy. But the here and now is David Sanders Jr., who's apparently getting a tour of the Capitol from Dylan Riola. You have Michael Terry, you have Isaiah Mosey, and you got a number of 2026, 2027 prospects. Are you surprised? I want to start there. Are you surprised that Nebraska has pulled this weekend off with, showcasing one more chance to think about Nebraska with some of the who's who of 2025?
No, I'm not really surprised. I mean, I think, they had David Sanders here previously, and once you get a recruit to Lincoln and they see the facilities and they just see sort of the mania, I mean, you kind of pick up even when you just get into town, like, okay, this is what this city's about, like this big stadium over there, and they feed off this football program. And I always think it leaves an impression. Now, in some cases over the years, we've seen it leave a good impression, but Nebraska finishes third or fourth. Mm-hmm. To a good recruit, and maybe this is a case where they don't finish it, but I think they got a real shot on David Sanders. I do. I feel like It's not just the connection with the coaching staff, but I probably underestimated the pull of Dylan Raiola with certain recruits. Like, I knew there would be some pull, but I don't think I captured the entire weight of it like 6 months ago. And as you've watched this off-season play out, I think there's a real draw that people, when they're doing their pros and cons lists on schools, you got an O-lineman, he's like, man, I wouldn't mind blocking for that guy. That's going to be a good few years with the quarterback like that and sort of his mannerisms and the tools he has. So I think that plus the facilities, Donovan Raiola has proven himself as a recruiter, I would say. Sometimes we've judged him by his little 5 to 10 minute segments with the media, but I think when he gets guys off to the side and has them on visits and he talks about technique and they see the family that he has in his room, it works on people because they've definitely landed some big ones. So I think they're right there with Sanders. Obviously with Mosey, you kind of tend to think that's going to flip Nebraska's way just with his dad now being in the program.
You wanted the allowance, son?
Yeah, I don't think I'm like going out on a limb on that one. That's a real thing. But obviously a good sign that he's here. And then Michael Terry has just always kind of kept the beach ball in the air for Nebraska. I don't know if they're the favorite, but they've been just, if they're behind, it's been by just a nose throughout the entire process. I talked to a guy down in Texas who is really close with Terry, and he's always said, Mike Roach in our network has just always felt like Nebraska's right there with Michael Terry, and that he's had a strong link. So I'm not shocked that he's here either. So it's a good deal. We'll see. I think they're going to get at least, I don't know. I think they could get 2 of the 3. I'll say that. That'll be my bold prediction.
It's Brian Christopherson with us here making some bold predictions on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brian, do you think that the Capitol here in Lincoln is an underutilized recruiting tool? Because that's where Dylan's taking David right now. They're up on top. They took some pictures. Underutilized tool, you think?
I don't know. Maybe it's not bad to visit. I went over there one day this was like 10 years ago, and I used to live closer to it, and I just walked around and I thought I haven't been here enough. I went with my mom actually, who was in town, and we had a good time. So I don't know how it plays with 17, 18-year-olds, but it worked on 27-year-old me. So maybe it's. Maybe it's the big, the cherry on top for guys. I don't know.
I will say, if you've been playing the new NCAA game, you've seen in Road to Glory the importance of keeping that GPA up. There's a great library in there you can study. It's kind of a hidden gem. Nobody's ever in the library. It's a quiet study spot. Lots of books around. It's got that kind of old library smell. Top tier study spot in the city of Lincoln for any prospective college students.
Look at Elijah pulling the old 4.0.
Yeah.
Saying, when I was killing it in college with my GPA.
Yeah, he's talking down to us a little bit through that, I think. But yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know about the library, but a dumb like me, maybe I don't know if that makes a big impact. But they're after some smart guys in this class, so they might be with Elijah on that.
When's the last time? Okay, you were 27. You went with family. I think I was 5th or 6th grade, Ruth Hill Elementary. We took the old yellow school bus down. They dropped us off. It was cool. We got to see the floor of the Capitol, right? And then it was just
the mosaics in there.
Yeah, the mosaic. Thank you for that term. I was going to say quilts.
Yeah, 4.0.
Wrong building.
4.0.
But it's been, I don't know, 40 years, 35 years for me. I'll have to ask Junior if he wants to go to the Capitol this weekend, and he'll say, "Yeah, can I throw you off the top?" I mean, that's how his response would be. But back to the recruiting. You want to play with, as you perceive, great players, and you've seen this happen in other programs before when they're about ready to launch. And I think Ole Miss, with some of the guys they brought in 7, 8, 9 years ago, this is pre-Kiffin, and then they had a good run of New Year's Day bowl games and wins over Bama. But at some point it goes from selling to production. But BC, all these guys have been around Dylan enough to know what kind of winner they think he's gonna be. I think that's the faith part of this thing, where they've seen it and they believe it a little bit. Now it's just a matter of doing.
Yeah, I go back to the recruitment of Dawson Merritt, who obviously ended up picking Alabama. But Nebraska was right there, and you think about some of the comments his dad made, who coaches with the Chiefs, and how we don't want to take it out of context, right, but he was glowing like in the traits that Dylan Raiola has, I guess you'd say, and how they're comparable to Mahomes, just how he goes about his business, and that doesn't obviously mean he's going to have the same career path, but there's a lot of good stuff to work with, and a guy like him sees it, and all these other guys do as well. And I think the other thing, you sensed it at media days, even though this program hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016, when you're around Matt Rhule and you listen to him talk, and I think kind of the feeling in the program is there's not that air of like a 5-win team over there right now. I think there's more of a we're pursuing winning 8, 9+ games, maybe being in the conversation for the CFP. And I know some people snicker at that, but you couldn't go to Indianapolis and listen to Rhule and not walk away thinking that he really believes he has a pretty good football team. They just got to back it up now. It's going to be a critical season in that regard because recruits are watching. They do want the evidence of it. But I do get the sense, like when these guys are in this weekend, but your David Sanders, your Michael Terrys, they're going to see or they're going to sense a program that feels it's taller than it has measured up the last few seasons. And that will probably not miss them. We'll see if it's effective or not, but I think it definitely will play on their minds a little bit.
BC, it's not just a sell job; it's belief, and you can look at the 6-year window, but you really got to separate that this is year 2, and man, in reality, that first year, if it would have gone a little bit different, they aren't 5-7. They are. But it didn't have to go down that way. And I think you got to carry yourself, and Rhule does this with extreme confidence, but he's been around enough rebuilds to know he'd be, if he didn't believe they were good and talented, he'd be the first guy to temper. And he's not overselling either. I think he's just pretty confident in the talent they have and wants to see it materialized.
He did a good job in Indy of not boxing himself in a corner with like a specific, like win number or anything like that. But there was enough comments made where it's like, we want to be in the fight and very soon, and maybe it's this year. And I actually thought his line, he connected it to the video game, and he's saying we're not a program that like has necessarily the 95 guy right now, or we don't have a ton of those guys on the roster. What we have are a bunch of guys, though, like in the 80s is basically what he's getting at, and he feels like that depth stacks up over the long haul of a season and is going to have a payoff. I just get the sense that, when those recruits go there this weekend, they're going to get kind of a taste of what, Brunson and I really felt it in Indianapolis. Like, coaches always kind of want to spin it like this is going to be a good year or this is going in the right way. Of course, that's part of it. But it was a genuine, like, they expect it. Like, there is an expectation that they're going to turn a corner this year. And I don't know what that means as a win total, but you could tell in Rhule that he feels like he's got the guys to get that done. It is a critical year, though. You got to back it up. You got to get, I think, to that 7-8 win total at least. And it tells people, David Sanders might have his name or mind made up by that point, but it confirms to him and other recruits in the next class, like, yeah, he's doing just what he did at Baylor and Temple. It's not just talk. He's doing it one more time. I'm going to go be a part of it.
BC, we need a couple minutes on the other side. Can we get that from you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, Brian Christopherson with us, joining us here. Friday edition, Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. 489-1240, the number to get in. More with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 BC, where you find him on Twitter.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Couple more minutes. Brian Christopherson with us here from Husker 24/7 Sports. He was in Indy with Brunsey. Got a chance to wave at the fellas there in Indy as it's all about the recruiting weekend with Mosey, Sanders, and Terry. and some other prospects for 26 and 27 for Nebraska. BC, when we look at some of the comments made by the Huskers that were there, that's Giff and Ty and Ben Scott, plenty of praise for Dylan Raiola, but plenty of praise, I should say, with their individual units. I love the just how locked in Gifford is. Ty Robinson is ready to take and make that step to be a game wrecker, and then Ben Scott with his mates on the offensive line. That's also a focal point, isn't it, with the offense needing to make some hay to help out what's perceived to be a really talented defense coming back for a second year with Coach White.
Yeah, and I think Ty Robinson, as much as he's been around this program, it seems like since the Pelini era almost. We know him so well, but I don't think we've seen his best football for an entire season, and I think he would tell you that. And last year, he was still dealing with the sort of coming off of that shoulder injury, and he kind of talked about this off to the side, how that maybe impacted him in the first half of the season. It was like the last 4 games where he really felt like he was starting to put it on film, and I think he just wants to pick up with that. And as much as we talk about, I think we probably get to Gifford and Hutmaker more. If Ty Robinson can take those 4 games and turn it into 11 to 12 games like that, and then you're feeding off, he's feeding off Nash and vice versa, and you got Cam Lenhart and Jamari working there. That's a really nice look. So Ty Robinson, I think, is pretty motivated to show, he can have that full season like that. So that's definitely something that stood out. And then, Gifford, just unfinished business. Because, you're in my bracket where I think of like 1993 Huskers with the motto unfinished business. But that's what it is for Giff in returning. And he just felt like 5-7 is not how I can leave this thing. That's not the way to end this book. And he has a lot of confidence that they're going to turn that story for him, and it's going to end sort of how you want it to. So there's definitely a determination from the guys that were there to run it back. As Giff said, it's great to have one more year of guaranteed football. And I think you're going to see some guys make decisions like that, especially with the NIL situation, where, you don't know necessarily if you're going to get drafted or be a free agent anymore. And you want to take your opportunity there, but why not run it back one more year wearing that helmet that you love and try to turn the program around and really leave your mark that way? It makes all the sense in the world to me.
Brian Christopherson with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brian, with that defense in particular, they're going to have a really tough test week 2 against Colorado. In terms of the test that provides, I mean, the high-flying passing attack that Colorado has. They love to push the ball downfield. Reports out of Boulder are the offensive line is improved. What do you think the defense is going to have buttoned up by the time that Colorado comes to town?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have the back end stable, and we can't take for granted, like, Omar Brown jumped right in and had a really good year last year. And we think that, with Deshaun Singleton, who was good hearing Tony White talk about him the way he did on the radio last night, and Marquise Buford and Giff, you've got a nice combo at safety. Obviously, Hartzog can work in there, too. That one corner spot, we always come back to it to fill the hours around here in the summer, but it was encouraging that Bly Hill, is going to be back a couple weeks in the fall camp. I just think that's going to be one of the more interesting storylines of August is who emerges on top there. Can Sire Wright have a say in it? Jeremiah Charles? And then Tommy Hill. Like, we can't just assume he's going to be that 89 rating guy is on the video game. He's got to go back it up. So, I mean, he's got to go prove that, and that's the type of game where you do that. But obviously last year, the one thing they did do well was they got to Sanders and they sacked him a ton of times. But he's a tough dude. People may be turned off by his personality sometimes, but he keeps getting up, and he's a gamer, and so you're going to have to keep hitting him all game long. And at some point this year compared to last year, they're going to have to get those takeaways, that they've been talking about all offseason. And we all know the problems Nebraska's offense had giving it away, but only 14 takeaways, ranked 106th. You want to see a Nebraska defense that takes the ball, away 20-some times, mid-20s this year, and if they combine that with the stats they had last season, then you're really cooking. So that would be the game to put that on display, where you have Colorado -2 in turnovers or something like that, and it really sets the tone for the year. That'll be a big deal.
BC will get you out on this, and as you left Indianapolis, is there a team you're maybe more likely to buy stock in? This can be Nebraska or whoever. After being there, you've got your favorites, but maybe somebody that's off the radar a little bit. Did somebody impress you?
I don't know that I'm buying stock in them, but they're on Nebraska's schedule, so they're worth bringing up. Indiana is one of those games where we'll talk about every other one on the schedule, but it's sort of in the middle of the year where it's like you got to go there and you got to just take care of business. And it's really going to be interesting what that outfit looks like under Kurt Cignetti with, like he has 10 or 11 transfers that came with him from James Madison, and he's confident. I mean, he's a confident dude, probably says some things you almost are like, oh, you really want to put that out there? But he'll do it. And so don't think for a second that a program like that, when they're looking at their schedule and their offices back there, Nebraska thinks they're going to be pretty good, but there's programs that still look at Nebraska as they're like, that's kind of a name program still in college football. Let's take them down a notch. Let's get that win in year one. And so I wouldn't say like I'm on guard like Indiana's going to, shock everybody and go 8-4 or something this year. But I just think it's going to be one of those important games that we probably sleep on. Don't let it be a trap and handle your business against those guys.
Yeah, they're gonna bite somebody this year. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think they will.
They are somebody to pay a little bit of attention to, as is Rutgers, as blue collar as they are, man, with what they got returning. And no, it's going to be fun. People are saying the schedule's doable, but it's still, if you just want to be real, it isn't easy just because of the Big Ten isn't easy week to week. BC, have yourself a good weekend, man, and shoot me a text. Maybe we can go lose a golf ball or two this weekend.
Yeah, let's go do it. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Appreciate you. There he is, Brian Christopherson. We went full 2 segments with him. We appreciate his time. And as always, follow and find and read Brian Christopherson with Husker247.com at Husker247BC, where you find him. And we got to do a birthday shout-out, and we can start this as well from a roll call standpoint. We give you our starting 5, but Arlo, formerly Broderick, says, look, if it's not too much trouble, Chris, Elijah, we need a birthday shout-out to the wonderful wife, Julie. She keeps us and our crazy family together. Julie, happy birthday today. And that's all the way, and your grandpa echoes that all the way from Chattanooga. But birthdays aren't a brutal thing. Red Wine checks in as well, Red Wine 65. When it comes to Shedeur continuing to swing, you just got to hit him hard really one time. Just takes one. We'll wind down this first hour.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
10 minutes away, the pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, going to be with us, Clausborne. We've still got a really good sit-down with Bruce Feldman that we may post online, Hail Varsity YouTube, at some point. Elijah's saying, maybe. You're the man, with the online content, when it goes up and how it goes up.
Hey, you're the boss. You tell me what to do.
No, not at all. It's a huddle here. Todd, good email in. Can always email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com, but also comment in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe there. But in reference to the video game rating, Todd says, look, we don't have the 95 guy, but we have a bunch of 9 to 5 guys, hard-working SOBs. I do love the blue-collar factor when it comes to Nebraska's roster. They've got talent, for sure. And they have ability. They also have the mentality, and that's so important. Now it just kind of comes down to seeing it happen in those tight fourth-quarter moments. Rhule touched on that a lot during his session, and it'll be an emphasis for sure to go make some plays on offense, on defense, on special teams.
Well,
but it just you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. But in the same sense, you can't be weary or scared of that moment.
It's a question to me of putting it all together. Because we saw a team that had, I think, all the pieces in 2021, dubbed the greatest 3-9 team of all time, had all the pieces. They can never quite put it all together, though. Whether that was you played 3 great quarters, and then the fourth quarter you lose it, whether it's a fumble on the final drive against Michigan that allows them to kick a field goal, like they were never able to put it all together and get the wins up on the scoreboard. And it becomes a lot easier whenever you can out-talent the other teams in your schedule, and that team wasn't good enough to out-talent teams. But I don't think this team is good enough to just step on the field and be able to out-talent teams. I think they have the talent to beat a lot of the teams on their schedule, but they're not good enough to go step in there and on a bad day still out-talent them. So it's a question of, can you, at least in my mind, put it all together, put that talent together? Does the pieces you bring in at wide receiver complement the quarterback that you have? Are you able to get a passing attack that way? Does the running back, whoever it ends up being, that and I think, though you may start the season running back by committee, someone's got to come out of
Someone's got to
step
emerge.
up. Someone's got to emerge. Does the running back that emerge complement the way that you want to run the football? Defensively, are you able to set up your offense, get some turnovers, set up some short fields, make some plays, get off the field
change.
on third
If you
down?
do turn it over, can you be as good as you were a year ago?
That's what I'm saying. It's about putting it together. It's not about, at least in my eyes, whenever I look at this team, it's not about the talent. They had the talent last year to get to 6 wins. They have the talent this year to get to 6 wins and probably 7 or 8, if not more. Can you put it all together and have a cohesive football team that can do it?
Let's tell you to buckle up. Be sure to do that if you're on the road this weekend. Hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. Your job as a driver is just one thing. That's to drive. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. KG checks in the greatest 3-9. KG is relating to the 3-9 record to sex life, and we'll just let your imagination.
You started in on it.
Run wild there.
I don't think you finished reading whenever you started, did you?
No, I started out about the 3-9, reminding KG of his sex life, and then how those numbers represent that part of the equation.
Yeah, moving on. Moving on.
KG, thanks for a little levity.
We'll have to get to an hour or two.
Yeah, sure. Right? Love it. So, what's Bill Doleman think of the Capitol? What's Bill Doleman think of Capitol Tours with 5-star offensive tackles by 5-star quarterbacks? Pride of Fairbury up next at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Doleman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
Into hour 2 at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, the pride of Fairbury. And yes, the professor, he is rocking the letter jacket from 1984. In the driveway is a T-topped Trans Am with leather. Billy D, you look and check this out, Hail Varsity YouTube stream. Do you wear that around every Friday before you come on the show and you just forgot to take it off? Or talk to me here. I love the Fairbury letter jacket.
Well, you know, it's a little cold outside, so I thought I'd stay in and make sure I was very comfortable today. Yeah, no, I wear this every Friday before we go on the air, and it's kind of like the warm-up jacket. And,
sure.
Take it off. No, the class reunion this weekend.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so heading down, and the damn thing still fits. So
that's big.
After a couple of short decades of being out of high school, the letter jacket still can still fit.
Does the jacket have anything about your free throw record?
No, that's more Hall of Fame material, and they like to keep that under wraps.
It's on the wall at the school.
Yeah. In the new building, which I went to high school, there were 2 buildings on campus: the new building, or the old building, which was built in 1923, and the new building built in 1947. So they got a new high school since then. But yeah, all those hallowed records, they're still back in the gym.
Bill, did you ever take a class trip to the state capitol and get a tour?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we did that a couple of times.
Was there a 5-star quarterback and offensive tackle touring when you were there?
Well, it's not a bad idea. Not too many other places can take the 5 stars and, show them the Husker kingdom the way Dylan Raiola can. Did anybody see the video of the Husker fan who took the shot of he and Raiola and Sanders and Raiola walking through up the airfield? I haven't seen that. Okay, well, some Husker fan gets the phone out, and Dylan Raiola is it looks as big as David Sanders. I mean, they look like they are,
both power forwards,
similar in size. Yeah, that's the first thing that struck me. And leave it to Husker fans to be at Eppley and welcome the guy there. And who knows who's going to show up, down by the stadium. There might be a few. Hopefully it's a better situation than when they called for the basketball tournament down by Jim Ager a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, no.
That was my first fear when Dylan put the tweet out. Is there more territory there for people to go hang out on fences? I hope so. But nevertheless, I would imagine there will be people there right about now.
What's the number? Let's call our shot here. 10,000, 5,000, a few thousand.
I would imagine there might be a couple hundred. I have a hard time believing it, but I could be wrong. People have lives too. May not want to go outside wearing their leather jacket on a day like today.
Well, I assume we'll see some content out of there shortly, assuming our expected arrival time was 5:15, and knowing how that goes, you kind of do it like a rock concert where you have to show up a little bit late to really get the people lathered
Doors
up.
open at 6, opening act 7:30. Axel and crew roll on at 11.
It builds the excitement is what's happening in the crowd there. So
you call it excitement. Some of us call it annoyance.
Hey, the art of fashionably late is a very real art.
Good.
If you're good at being fashionably late, I mean it's an A1 skill to have. I'm sometimes good at being fashionably late. Sometimes I'm just late, not to work, never to work, just to social events. But there is an art to it.
Don't be surprised that maybe Husker fans will give Sanders and Terry and Mosey a welcome like they gave to Matt Rhule when he pulled up back in November of a couple of years ago to take the Nebraska. There might be a lot of people there. I don't know, but
we need drone footage. Somebody's got a drone. Somebody can do a flyover. We'll get you updated with some of that footage. But just a reaction, though, Bill, from a pure recruiting standpoint, Coach Barnett was really good yesterday on the reality. You want your quarterback or your best player to be out leading from the front with trying to attract other talent. And it's happened for years where when guys would visit officially, they'd be sold on the coach, the program, the development, the vision, the academics. I mean, go through the ABCs here. But ultimately, do I want to play and do I like these guys that I'm meeting maybe for the first time or the fourth time, and can I see a future together of success?
The key to getting any recruit here is just to get him here. And I think Matt Rhule epitomizes that. It's not just fly over, cornfields, and I find that beautiful, but anyway. But, people come to Nebraska, and you fly into Omaha. That's, a terrific metropolitan area. I've said many times I'd put it on par with Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, or any city like that. Lincoln's growing closer. The two areas are growing closer to each other. You come to Lincoln, it's a pretty clean town, nice downtown area, beautiful campus. It's getting people here and then meeting the people who are here, and that's what gets you a second visit from people like, 5-star recruits or people who want to do business in the capital city or in Omaha. So, Nebraska wins the battle just by getting people to come here, take a look, get on the lists. When Raiola last year went through his recruitment, there were like 4 or 5 other guys that were also high targets. We remember that big March weekend. The years are going by. What was it, March of 2023? And they're at the baseball game, and there were 4 or 5 other key recruits they wanted. I don't think they got any of them other than Raiola, and he didn't commit to Nebraska until December. So the fact that they come here and Nebraska's on those radars, that speaks, to volumes that Nebraska's not just, staying in their lane, if you will, and just, settling for everybody's leftovers when it comes to recruiting. They're taking some big shots, and some big shots are coming here.
Bill, does it surprise you? I sent this footage to Schmidt just now. Matt Rhule out meeting and greeting the fans in front of the training facility ahead of David Sanders' arrival. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to you.
No, that does not. I assume he probably had some food, perhaps, and coupons to what is it? The hair place that his wife's got going on at the South Point.
No, he'll meet and greet and fire the crew up.
The right way to do it is to bring a 30 rack and start handing out beers.
Well, not everybody even had the fake ID in the footage you showed me, Elijah, so that may be frowned upon. But
people were clearly children there, but there were adults.
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah, nothing like handing Dad a beer, and Mom letting the little one go with Dad, and Dad catching hell because he's now immortalized on Twitter grabbing a beer. So, Bill, a lot to get into with Big Ten Media Days. We got back from there somehow.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm getting back.
But with Nebraska, the narrative and the Paul Finebaum hand grenade, was that yesterday or was that this morning?
This morning.
This morning. Reaction to how Matt Rhule and Nebraska apparently are poking just for their existence, the SEC threatening the SEC, the league as a whole. And Coach Rhule's comments were right on point about what the Big Ten should be and what it is. I mean, it's a really talented, deep league. But overall, just Rhule killed it, not only locally but nationally. And he maximized exposure. It was big with all the national outlets, and then you factor in the McAfees, and it was all Matt Rhule day on Wednesday about any and every network and every platform.
We talked about that on the Average Joe Sports Show last week, that there was a perfect place for Matt Rhule to be positioned on Wednesday. Everybody kind of settles in on Tuesday. You had some of the bigger names on the periphery on Tuesday and Thursday. And James Franklin, is very affable with the media as well. But for somebody who handles it as well as Rhule does, I thought where he was positioned in the middle of the deal was perfect, and he did a perfect job. Although, I shouldn't say perfect. His pocket square game was really off.
Okay.
Wow. Gary Novotny or Nate Rutt, somebody from Gary Michaels, and I don't know if he's a Gary Michaels guy, but
I think everybody is.
The pocket square was a little off kilter. Okay, it bothered me a little bit.
I didn't notice, man. He sat down with us and he looked dapper, and as did the players, because they were all Gary Michael'd up, and it was cool.
The pocket square was askew. Okay,
was
just noticed.
What? So different color than the tie, or what?
No, I didn't have a problem. It just was like it was just kind of angled in there. It should have been a little more squared off.
Okay.
But that's really the only.
You're bringing it up because he's a detailed guy.
I tell that to my students all the time. Got to pay attention to detail. Well, so that was really my only qualm with Matt Rhule on Media Day, and otherwise, give him an A.
Could you make the argument that the pocket square nowadays is an antiquated men's style fashion choice anyway, and just choosing to wear the pocket square in general is a bad idea?
No, you need the pocket square.
Okay.
You just got to make sure it's tight and just a little off, I thought.
The guy that always put the pocket square in perfectly was the great and the late Jack Pierce. He'd have the money pocket square, and the way he would spread it out in there, it was big time.
Right, but everything else that he did, and it was, once again, he was a great representative for Nebraska and for the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Certainly got kudos from whoever the academic was that was there talking about Nebraska's GPA. So Nebraska's going to get an extra milk carton at nap time.
What'd you think of Finebaum's take, though? His venom today?
Well, first of all, I think we should all wish Paul Finebaum a very happy birthday today, turning 69. So congratulations, Grandpa, and many more successful years for you. But look, I listened. I heard that this morning, and I'm like, why the hell is Paul Finebaum talking about Matt Rhule other than, most people are talking about him, that Nebraska is going to have a good year. Kirk Herbstreit said that Nebraska would be an outside team to consider for making the college football playoff. So I heard what he had to say, And another thing that I tell my students is when you do an interview, you really need to listen to what the other person is saying. And at no point in the comment that they played of Matt Rhule did I hear him say, us, we, Nebraska, playoff, anything like that. It was about the league. He's talking about the Big Ten being the NFL conference of college football, and the fact that it's geographically spread out. It's going to be very, very difficult. There's a variety of different styles of play with those teams coming in from the West Coast. But at no point did he say it's 4 teams from the Big Ten should be in there, and we're going to be one of them. He didn't say that at all. And if I'm looking at recent history, the defending national champion is from Michigan. Now, they'll have an uphill challenge this year without Jim Harbaugh and without McCarthy. Ohio State is the prohibitive favorite to be in there. Everybody loves Oregon as a college football playoff team. And Phil Knight's 86, okay? So at some point, he's not going to be around. And as long as there is another Knight, not named Bobby or Shug, somebody's going to be sitting on those golden eggs that the Ducks sit on, and they're always going to be financing in pursuit of a national championship. So if you look at Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, those 4 teams right now would be the elite of the Big Ten and could conceivably be perennial conference playoff football teams. And Nebraska seems to be on the move, but at no point did he say we should be in there too. So I don't know what Paul Finebaum is doing other than churning 68 to 69 today. Had his mind a little, maybe he was imbibing a little bit early and celebrating.
Well, does it kind of not underscore the ESPN mentality a little bit? And this is a thought that just came to me of, in order to be or to have an opinion that matters in college football, you have to be a national powerhouse. That is kind of a very ESPN branded thing to go about. That the only people whose opinion should really matter are the people who are winning football games. Which that's on one hand a bit of a reality of sports, but on the other hand, it's very much ESPN that seems to have been pushing that narrative in recent years.
And talk about Nebraska. If you want somebody to hear what you're saying, say something about Nebraska being irrelevant or not being a big-time thing or whatever. That's all you got to do. And ESPN has mastered that. We're doing it today. But if Nebraska's not relevant, then why is David Sanders here and listing Nebraska next to Tennessee, Paul Finebaum's alma mater? Maybe he's mad about that. Why is Dylan Raiola here? Why are our 5-star guys from Texas and Kansas City here today, right? If Nebraska is not relevant, those guys aren't looking. They're not going up to the top of the Capitol. People aren't. They're not here at all. And so he didn't hear what Matt Rhule said, and there was nothing in there.
Didn't want to hear it.
Nebraska. It was all about the Big Ten, and he's not wrong. There should be probably 4 teams annually from the Big Ten. Who else? Where else are they going to come from? 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, 1 or 2 from the Big 12, the Pac-2. The ACC, which is crumbling.
The Irish.
In a group of 5. You've got the welfare handout. So why wouldn't there be 4? Why wouldn't there be 4? Right?
Bill, I need you to hang tight. I need to dive into some NIL with you on these 3+, right? Mosey, Sanders, Terry, and some of the comments Rhule had this week regarding NIL and the fact that, all right, you've got 3 dudes on campus right now to help put an exclamation point on 2025. You got a couple more minutes in that Fairbury jacket?
Well, if you're talking about NIL money giving me because I'm the all-time free throw record holder at the Bob Devaney Sports Center, yes, I'll stick around.
Stay tuned. More Bill Doleman on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. You can find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence, and you quote tweeted some early footage of Raiola and Sanders and more so Coach Rhule greeting Husker Nation, those that came out to the Osborne complex with the come out and say what's up to a 5-star offensive tackle. A lot of the crystal balls in the recruiting world say Isaiah Mosey could be flipping from Oregon to Nebraska. Then there's Michael Terry that has always kept Nebraska, it feels like, in his back pocket. What could Nebraska do this weekend with these high-level talent guys for 2025? Bill, we talk NIL quite a bit on the show, and Rhule mentioned and was asked about NIL and Nebraska in that realm and that world. And it wasn't that long ago Rhule put out the number, this is before the Dillon commitment, about what it is going to take to get a high-end quarterback, right? That window of money, what the range is. But Rhule, to paraphrase, touched on talk versus action, and voila, you have 2 5-stars and a high 4-star in town this weekend. Let's spend a minute here on Nebraska's collective doing some overtime here to keep Nebraska not only relevant in the NIL game, but very, very competitive.
My question at this point is getting to be, when is there going to be some type of NIL salary cap? You're capping the rosters now at 105, which sounds like a lot, but I really think that's going to be a health issue. I'm with those guys that think at 120 should be where it is, but they're going down to 105, and they're going to be able to pay players and there's no scholarship limits. So who knows what the value of the scholarship is going to be? Is that going to be factored into NIL? I think there's a lot of accounting that has to go on, and there has to be some sense of control over what schools are going to be able to pay out. The 105 limit on rosters is an effort to bring parity to college football, which is top heavy with the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 conferences that should get 4 teams every year into the college football playoff, right? But by having the limit on scholarship or on the NIL, that would bring even more parity to the game, right? If you're going to allow Oregon and Ohio State and yes, Nebraska to, come up with 7 figures for every 5-star or 4-star, well, what about that dime in the rough 2 or 3-star? Are they going to just now get overlooked at all times? Are the days of Jared Tomich over? He was a walk-on, so yes, the walk-ons are over. But finding that gem who's going to come in here and bust his ass, or a Makovic who's going to come in and bust his ass and make sure that everybody is on the right page culturally, I think you're going to have to figure out a way to limit what players can make. They already do it to a certain extent outside of bonuses in professional sports. But people are lost in this conversation about NIL are the dollars to the other sports. There's a player that softball has its first, shouldn't say first. There's probably a couple of softball players making $1 million at Oklahoma. But is it the Stanford player who got $1 million to go to Texas Tech? Something like that?
Nuts.
Okay. Nebraska volleyball. Nebraska wants to invest in volleyball, but what about women's basketball and Britt Prince and all of those kind of players? If you want to have parity in football, you're going to have parity somehow in all of the other sports too. And otherwise, Nebraska in volleyball, Oklahoma in softball, some of these other sports, you're going to continue to be top heavy. And I don't know how the NCAA putting 105 scholarship or player limit in football, what that solves for all of the other issues surrounding NIL and collegiate athletics at this point.
I don't think you can put a cap on NIL because it's a free market.
Well, but they do that in the pros, right? I mean, college football is moving to the pro. There's a salary cap. Maybe not in baseball, but in the NFL, there's a salary cap.
Well, I mean, there's been arguments though in the NFL that the salary cap is in effect. But
that's negotiated between the ownership, the league, and the
players' union.
That's right. So you're going to get a union. You're going to get a college athlete, college football player, college athletics union, something. So the NIL is a topic of conversation, and it's an issue. But to just pigeonhole it into David Sanders, for example, or Dylan Raiola, for example, that addresses a couple of 5-star football players. When whatever they're trying to do with collegiate sports and what they've done with the conference realignment and all that stuff, they're leaving all these other programs and sports out there to kind of pick up the pieces and try to figure out what are we supposed to do. And I think there's a greater chasm between football. There always has been. Remember, with Title IX, and as important as Title IX is, how does Title IX and the rest of college sports, especially women's athletics, how does that all make sense? I think there's a greater chasm in that now than there ever has been, because all those NIL dollars, people focus on football, and you have all these other sports that because of NIL and because of conference realignment, they're going to take a hit, and maybe a hit into non-existence. Mm-hmm. So NIL with football, yeah, it's a topic. How much is Sanders going to get? Ohio State, 2 years ago, Ryan Day says $2 million for a quarterback. Matt Rhule follows that up this past year. But the haves and the have-nots in all of the other sports is another topic, and it's a much broader topic than the one we're having about a couple of five-stars visiting today.
One of the things with the roster limits, Bill, that I keep coming back to is, yeah, you can set the number at 105, but if I've learned anything from my life of watching sports, it's that where there's a rule, there's always a loophole.
Right. Well, and then the NFL, it's the bonuses.
Yep.
Right. Signing bonus, and that's one way to solve that issue. I think the 105 is a mistake, and I think that they will come to look at that as a real safety issue. And those coaches who said that's not right, I wholeheartedly agree that there needs to be a few more bodies on the field, because if you're going to start talking about playing 13, 14, 15, 16 games all the way into February for athletes who are still maturing from 17 and 18 years old to 22, 23, or in the case of BYU, 28, 29, that you have to allow them to physically recover, and you can't tax them the way they do. The NFL doesn't practice, I don't think, as hard as they do in college football.
No, they don't. No, I mean, you got training camp that's still a shadow of what training camp used to be. It's still tough, but that's your honing. You're limited to contact in college now, and how are you going to get better and developed for when it gets really time to hit people weeks 1 through 12 and then beyond if you're a good football program getting into the playoff? You can't tell me that less is okay with how teams like Georgia, like Nebraska, like Bama have practiced, and Ohio State have been better. Michigan, they've been physical when they could be, and they're different in a good way. They're bullies. They're tough, and you get tough by beating the hell out of one another. You lose bodies by beating the hell out of one another and shrinking your roster. And also having 17, 18-year-olds, expecting them to be able to perform at the same level as a 22-year-old's idiotic. So I'm totally against roster shrinkage, and give me the 120 like it's always been. And then give me some more walk-ons. Whatever you can fund, you should be able to do.
I'm personally against shrinkage in all forms.
and look what happened at West Canaan High when Bud Kilmer forced that guy to. When Bud Kilmer forced his running back to continue to play, it ruined his career.
Take the needle, son.
And Bud Kilmer ends up getting fired at halftime, and West Canaan went on to win the game. But anyway, you're going to have a situation with smaller roster sizes where guys who may not be fully healthy are going to be forced to play. Mm-hmm. And that's why when Rhule talks about having 3 quarterbacks or 2 quarterbacks, or Steve Sarkisian, with Ewers and Manning, you're going to need them when you're expecting your seasons to go into December and on into January. And it is counterintuitive, I think, people who don't know the game, but the more you hit, the better prepared you are to play. And the healthier it is, as long as it's controlled. But I just think we're entering an unsafe era and an unknown era, not just for college football, but for all of college sports.
Bill will get you out on this. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, the professor. You've got your high school reunion, class of 1984, you and John Bender and the crew from Breakfast Club. I'm interested to get this answer. Mr. Snitley asked in the stream, do they have Guinness in Fairbury? Have you had a Guinness in Fairbury?
Well, I'm not going to take that chance that they don't. So it's BYOG. There will be at some point the course of the weekend. However, I'm always very careful. Don't drink and drive. Right. But I will probably tip a Guinness with the Fairbury Old Jeffs this weekend.
It was funny. We were down at the bar this past weekend. It was awesome. See Seth and the crew. And Billy D came down. We had one. It was wonderful. And they had the Guinness for you. And we were going to make a run because one of the last times, like for some reason, the Guinness exploded and Doleman walks in. It's like the scene in Animal House where they're taking the whole bar, the whole bleeping bar, and Belushi's screaming to the sky until Stratton gets him the Jack Daniels. There was Guinness for you at the bar last weekend.
And we tipped rather well to make sure that whatever Guinness was left was
yours.
Was hidden back, so that the next time we make a trip down to see Seth and Allie and all the fine people there, that it'll be, back behind something else.
Well, post some pictures of the reunion party.
What is a Jeff?
It's a night.
It's the most asked question in the state of Nebraska. What is a Jeff?
Am I wrong?
Huh?
Am I wrong? Is it some sort of medieval swordsman?
It's the Monopoly guy. That's the mascot.
The bald guy with the mustache?
Well, the rich guy.
Yeah.
That's the mascot. Yeah.
So essentially, your answer is no answer.
It's the most unique nickname in all of American sports. There's a college in Ohio, Amherst. They are the Lord Jeffs, or at least they were. But we are the Jeffs, the mighty, mighty Jeffs. Jeffs. Jeffs are the very best. Up with your colors, boys. Proudly we hail.
Look at Bill Doleman.
Former cheerleader, apparently.
No. Yeah, because he has such high respect for the Aggie Yell crew. That's what he. Yeah. Bill, be good. Enjoy. Wear that leather jacket proudly.
Yeah, it's about to come off, and I don't think it's going to make it down to fair.
Dude, show up in it. Be that guy.
All right, boys.
Proud of Fairbury. Bill, be good. Appreciate you, man. There he is. Do you have a leather jacket you still wear? No, he does not wear it. No comment from me.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome him in. He's imaginary. He wears red. It is Clausborne. We love talking with Claus. Friday forecast will crank back up this fall with all your college football and NFL picks. Claus, how we doing today? Good to spend a few minutes with you.
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm working my way through the 77th hour of the opening ceremonies of the Paris Olympics. It's taking quite a while, and I could probably sum up the entire affair with all the dancers and the streamers and the Louis Vuitton cases with one word, and I'll sum up that summary with 7 words, which is not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, Claus, good for you watching the opening ceremonies. Have you had your eye on recruiting at all? I mean, what a scene it could be. We don't have official eye confirmation with the number of Husker fans out front of the Osborne complex, but it's Dylan Raiola being the taxi man for 5-star David Sanders Jr.
Well, obviously, I hope there's a good class of young men that join the team in December or February or whenever that is now. But I'll be honest with you, Christopher, I really am not the type of guy who follows recruiting too close. If I really wanted to follow the comings and goings of teenage boys, well, I'd watch a lot more CW shows. And folks, let me tell you, if you would have had a piece of coal near Christopher, you might have had a diamond in your hand before I landed that punchline. I'm not sure that's where he thought I was going to go with that.
Oh, I'm not sure. If you probably haven't pulled up on stream, the look in his eyes as he turned away from the camera, you was scared.
Yep, and I made the mistake of taking a drink of water before the answer happened. But, well, Claus, that being said, how would you plan a visit weekend for potential recruits? So we know Dylan's already taken David Sanders to the Capitol today.
Well, certainly that's kind of in line with what I would probably do. It's been a while since I've recruited anybody. And what a lot of people don't know is I was a pretty highly sought-after athlete myself coming out of high school. So I'd probably do what got me to go where I went, up by 5 a.m. for a nice fishing trip out on the lake, sensible ham sandwich for lunch while listening to a nice sermon, a nap, a dinner at the Legion, in bed by 8, and then let the players figure out which club has the most kicks.
Wait, you're telling me this was your high school schedule?
That was my recruiting visit, and that's how Hastings College became the talk of all Nebraska.
Okay.
I like the ham sandwich call. That was pretty good.
A nice dinner at the Legion.
Pretty good. So, Big Ten Media Days, we got back from there, and it was eventful. Tough opening statement for Deshaun Foster. Good dude. Had a short interaction with him, but clearly the buzz is about his moment on stage. Claus, public speaking. You're great at it. What advice do you have for some first-time head coaches?
Well, it's obviously going to be an important part of the job. I've talked to many coaches about that. My advice to the first coach I really mentored was to say tremendous, and we're really moving around well out there every time you open your mouth. So I might not be the best, but I will say, Deshaun, if Christopher and Elijah and I can come up with 1 to 2 minutes of compelling content out of the 20 we spend together each week, I think anybody can do it. So have a little confidence in yourself and roll into Indianapolis next year a little more confident. And I will ask Christopher, you said the trip was eventful. Were you just disappointed that St. Elmo's didn't have a lot of Muppets in it, or what happened?
No, St. Elmo's was awesome. We had a good time. 1933 Speakeasy. And then Harry and Izzy's is where we ate. That's kind of the west wing of St. Elmo's. The problem was getting home. The travel home was an absolute nightmare.
Well, unless you're traveling with John Candy, it probably will be.
Well, that's what it turned into.
Yeah, planes, trains, and automobiles. Claus, more thoughts here on Big Ten Media Days. Indiana coach Curt Cignetti, he's been making headlines since he took over at Indiana. He's very confident at Big Ten Media Days. What's your take on Cignetti and Indiana? Can they be a player this year?
Well, absolutely. I think Indiana can be a player so long as they have an Xbox Series S or a PlayStation 5. I think anybody can be a contender.
That's pretty good. I like that. What about Rhule and Nebraska? I mean, there's a lot of excitement surrounding Nebraska. I think Rhule kind of fed into that a little bit. He didn't intentionally do so, but he's such a confident speaker as well that that kind of naturally lends itself to a little bit of excitement, especially among Husker Nation. What's your take on Nebraska? The pressure might be mounting. How do you think this team can stay calm under pressure?
Well, first of all, I think anytime Matt Rhule speaks, we need to make sure everybody is pretty far away from their nearest brick wall, or they'll run right through it. He reminds me a lot of Bob in that I think he could probably sell catechisms in a cat house.
Wow.
So he gets people very, very excited. But I'll tell you this, I've faced a lot of pressure situations in my life, and I've always felt like I've kept it pretty even keel, pretty calm, and I owe it all to Big Red Gum. There is no coincidence that their stock dropped massively in 1997. So if that's my advice for anybody, Big Red Gum.
Claus is with us. He's imaginary. He wears red. We get commentary on a Friday from Claus. We appreciate him. So with Cignetti, did he remind you of Bo at all? Is there a little Bo comparison?
There's a little bit. A very confident fella, but probably maybe a little overconfident in what he can accomplish quickly. But really, other than that, unless he's got a brother who requires a net nanny on his computer and a permanent revolving bail fund, I don't see much of a comparison, but I certainly wish him the best in his endeavors.
Okay. Claus, we'll wrap it up. I don't know how we follow that up. But the political arena. What's your reaction to all the support and love and endorsements for Kamala?
We're talking politics with Claus.
I want Claus's take on Kamala's week of momentum.
Let's see.
You that, or do you want to talk Finebaum and Rhule, Claus?
Well, either way, I thought it was very interesting how this went down. Certainly an historic moment with President Biden stepping aside and endorsing his vice president. And I felt like it took quite a long while for former President Obama and his wife to make that same endorsement. But I'll tell you what really happened there. I was on the phone with him last night and said, listen, I didn't necessarily like the guy that replaced my replacement and his replacement, but even I pretended to really be behind Bill Callahan. So if I can do it, you can do it. Seems to be my theme this week.
Claus, we love you. You have a good weekend.
Okay.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio version of Hail Varsity Radio. Like and subscribe there. And give us some feedback. Give us a rating, good, bad, ugly. We'll take it. Appreciate it. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Big thanks to Claus. And the Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, in his letter jacket today.
And we got some research in, actually, Schmitty, during that last segment on what is a Jeff.
Brian Christopherson, shout out Hour 1, thanks to him. A Jeff is?
Well, this comes from Jasper's stepdad, saying the Jeff comes from the famous comic back in the day, Mutt and Jeff. So a Jeff is a comic book character.
That's
or not
big.
comic book, sorry, comic strip character. Big difference there.
Yes. Stephen chimes in about the Sark divorce. I just saw this posted. That's tough, but it's an amicable divorce. They were going to try and stay best friends, but dude just did SEC Media Days. He's under the pressure cooker of Texas. He's trying to go back-to-back with playoff appearances, and that's just one way. Not many folks float out there that it's divorce time.
Well, speaking of marriages down in Texas, did you hear this story with Texas assistant coach Jeff Banks?
No.
Texas assistant coach Jeff Banks, who famously had that viral monkey biting incident, if you remember, with the stripper pole assassin.
Yes.
He was
it his pet monkey that bit her, or was it her monkey that, or her pet monkey that bit him?
It was at his house. Her pet monkey bit a kid on Halloween.
Okay.
Anyway, congrats to them. They've gotten married. Pole assassin and Jeff Banks now officially married.
That is the mother of all nicknames.
Pole assassin.
Yeah. Yeah. Grill tonight. What are you putting on the grill?
Nothing. I got my meal prep. I've been on my diet. See, I've after really, as Charlie McBride once said, sometimes you really have to punish your body to show it who's boss. I did that over the 4th of July weekend.
That's about a month ago almost.
I'm taking care of myself until football season because Lord knows my body will be punished again with all the barbecue and burgers I'll be eating during football season.
All right.
So taking care of myself a little bit. I got some chicken in the fridge. I'm going to make some chicken rice, a little kimchi with it. That'll be good.
Any vodka tonight? Tequila, whiskey, beer?
No. I'm also not drinking as a part of this.
Okay.
Well, I've limited myself to 2 alcoholic beverages per week.
So have I, but that kind of went out the window.
At media days, yeah, I can assume. So I don't think any of that. It might just be a chill night sitting in my house. Maybe I'll stay up and watch Olympic badminton at 1:30 in the morning.
That's a good call.
It's at 1:30 in the morning, though.
That's not a good call. Weekend edition, we are back at you at 7:45, back to our normal start time. We were early-ish at Searles and the Tyson's Treasure Chest golf outing last Saturday. But we'll be ready to go tomorrow. We'll check in with Cranack and dear friend Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed back at it. So we will expect and hope to see you. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe. That's where you get it. on the digital platform for the weekend. And, brother, we got a whole bunch of football to get ready for. More Husker thoughts as camp gets underway next week. Nothing to bet, steak or beer-wise? Anything grab your fancy?
Does David Sanders commit by the end of the weekend?
Yeah.
No.
Actually, let's throw out how many of the three here. Who? I'm going to say 2 out of the 3.
Well, I was going to say 2 out of the 3, so
That's fine.
There goes the steak and a beer bet. It's not a bet.
No bet. See you tomorrow. Talk tomorrow on Hail Varsity. Thanks.